Scarlett's hands froze, suspended mid-polish over the delicate crystal wine glass. The high-pitched sound of a woman's voice cutting through the elegant murmur of the private dining room. The tone was sharp, deliberately abrasive, amplified just enough to ensure every single person present heard the insult. Did they really send her to serve us tonight? I specifically requested someone presentable. The room instantly seized up. Every member of the serving staff, every hulking bodyguard stationed discreetly in the corners, every wealthy patron in that lavish restaurant held their breath. Scarlett felt the familiar, scorching wave of humiliation crawl up her neck, tightening her throat. But she kept her gaze fixed downward, kept polishing the glass with slow, practiced strokes. She had learned years ago that any reaction, any outward sign of distress, only fueled the fire. "Penelope, please." Someone attempted a mild interjection, their tone pleading. "No, I'm serious. Look at that hair. Those clothes." The voice, Penelope writes, was pure, unadulterated disdain. "This is the Bella Court. For God's sake, we have standards." Penelope Wright's brittle laughter sounded like a shatter of expensive Venetian glass hitting marble. "Honestly, I'm not even sure she knows which fork is which." Scarlett's reflection stared back at her from the gleaming, newly polished surface of the crystal. Her natural curls pulled into a tight, utilitarian bun. The dark, exhausted smudges beneath her eyes. The cheap, ill-fitting fabric of her standard uniform. She'd pulled triple shifts for the last 3 days straight. Her feet were screaming with a raw, throbbing ache. Her daughter needed critical medication. She couldn't afford the luxury of losing this job. But then she felt it, a palpable presence settling directly behind her, an energy that made the entire room physically shift. It was the absolute, profound silence that always precedes a lightning strike or thunderclap. "What?" A male voice finally cut through the stillness. It was quiet as a tomb, yet twice as final. "Did you just say?" Scarlett turned, a movement that felt impossibly slow, and her heart ceased beating entirely. Nicholas Bennett stood barely 5 feet away, and every single person in the massive room, from the servers to the millionaires, had gone utterly, terrifyingly still, like figures carved in marble. He was the most powerful man in the city, the invisible force whose vast empire stretched from legitimate, gleaming international hotels to the dangerous undertakings whispered about only in the darkest corners of the capital. He was the man whose private dining room she had been assigned to prepare tonight. And he was looking at Penelope Wright like she had just signed her own death warrant. If you want to discover how this pivotal story began and what transpired in the moments immediately following this confrontation that changed everything, remember to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment sharing where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one to light. Now, let's see how a single moment of casual cruelty became the catalyst for a relationship no one could have possibly predicted. 3 weeks earlier, Scarlett Hayes had never heard the name Nicholas Bennett. She knew the Bella Court existed, of course, everyone in the city did. But it was an edifice that stood in a world so dramatically removed from hers that it might as well have been located on a different planet. Her world was the perpetual damp and chill of the basement apartment in Southside where the heating perpetually failed. It was the raw, rattling cough of her 4-year-old daughter, Lily, that refused to subside. It was the crushing reality of having $73 remaining in her bank account and a pharmacy bill that cost exactly $95. "Mommy, is Miss Janet coming tonight?" Lily asked from the worn, threadbare sofa, her small voice tight and raspy. "Yes, baby." Scarlett bent to kiss her daughter's forehead, checking for fever again. "Still too warm. And you'll be the best girl for her, all right? Mommy has to work the late shift. 3 jobs. Lily's huge, intelligent brown eyes looked up at her with that devastating, instinctive childhood wisdom that broke Scarlett's heart every day. 2 tonight, Scarlett managed, forcing a tired smile. "But that means pancakes this weekend. The really good ones with the chocolate chips." She slipped out the door before her daughter could see the tears that threatened to fall. The bus ride to the Bella Court took 45 minutes, and Scarlett spent every second of the rattling journey performing agonizing financial calculations. If she picked up the extra weekend shift at the diner, if she skipped lunch for the entire week, if the landlord could possibly wait just 3 more days. The Bellecourt loomed before her, a forbidding glass and steel palace reflecting the last vestiges of the city's sunset. Scarlett used the service entrance, presenting her brand-new, stiff employee badge to the security officer. She had been utterly shocked when they called her back after the interview. The pay was triple what she made cleaning offices, and crucially, they offered full health insurance coverage after 90 days of employment. 90 days. Lily could finally see a real doctor in 90 days. That timeline was her lifeline. You're the new girl. A woman, immaculate in her high-end server uniform, looked Scarlett up and down with critical eyes. They put you on prep duty tonight. Private dining room. And listen carefully. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. You do not want to mess this up. We don't know who booked it, but they reserved the entire executive floor. That means someone serious. Someone powerful. You keep your head down, you do your job flawlessly, and maybe, just maybe, you'll still have this job tomorrow. Scarlett nodded, her stomach a painful, tight knot of anxiety. The private dining room was like something conjured from a dream sequence in a prestige movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a dizzying panorama of city lights. The polished mahogany table was large enough to seat 20, and each individual place setting was worth more than Scarlett's monthly rent. The crystal stemware caught the ambient light like hundreds of tiny, suspended stars. Scarlett had been polishing that priceless crystal for nearly 2 hours when she heard the first voices approaching from the hall. Absolutely unacceptable that they sent that email to my attorney. The door swung open. Scarlett kept her eyes meticulously down, kept working. She saw expensive leather shoes first, then the flash of designer dresses and perfectly tailored suits. The group swept in, radiating a confidence that suggested they owned not just this room, but the very air they breathed. Champagne. Someone immediately ordered. The 2008 crystal, please. Scarlett moved carefully toward the wine storage, her hands surprisingly steady despite the mounting nerves. She had studied the restaurant's colossal wine list until she had it fully memorized. She absolutely could not afford a mistake here. She was returning with the precious bottle when she heard it. Oh God, they let the help use the same entrance as guests now. How democratic. Scarlett refused to look up. She focused intently on the neck of the champagne bottle, on the ice bucket she carried, on anything but the blonde woman whose voice was saturated with liquid disdain. Penelope, honestly. Another woman started, sounding vaguely uncomfortable. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Penelope Wright replied smoothly. This is the Bellecourt. We expect a certain aesthetic. Penelope paused, meticulously examining her perfect manicure. Not whatever this is supposed to be. Scarlett felt every eye in the room turn to her, suddenly focused on her inadequacy. Her face burned with heat, but she held her expression neutral, maintaining the precise pace of her movements. The sommelier, noticing the escalating tension, subtly rescued her, accepting the champagne bottle with a slight, dismissing nod. Scarlett retreated immediately to the prep area, her hands finally shaking now that she was out of sight. It wasn't the first time she had faced this kind of treatment. It wouldn't be the last. She just had to endure. But as she stood there trying desperately to steady her ragged breathing, trying to conjure Lily's face and remember exactly why she was submitting to this, the door opened again, and the entire atmosphere irrevocably shifted. Nicholas Bennett didn't just walk into rooms. He utterly dominated them. Scarlett felt the massive change in air pressure and gravity before she even dared to look up. When she did, her breath caught, trapped painfully in her chest. He was breathtakingly tall, impossibly broad-shouldered, with intensely dark hair only lightly touched with silver at the temples. His custom suit likely cost more than her entire life savings, but it was his face that held her frozen. Sharp, aristocratic features, a jawline that looked capable of cutting glass, and eyes so intensely dark they seemed to possess the depth of a starless night. Eyes that seemed to see straight through the armor she wore. Those overwhelming eyes met hers across the narrow space of the prep area. And for one impossible, suspended moment, the chaos of the kitchen, the fresh sting of humiliation, the crushing exhaustion. All of it simply evaporated. Then someone called his name and the moment broke. He moved, swift and silent, disappearing into the private dining room where the swelling sound of laughter and privileged conversation instantly resumed. Scarlett released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her supervisor materialized, handing her a fresh tray piled high with polished wine glasses. "Take these in," and Scarlett. The older woman's expression was almost mournfully sympathetic. "Whatever happens in there, just smile and stay quiet. Some people, they only feel superior when they're making others feel small. Let them have it." Scarlett took the heavy tray, squared her aching shoulders, and walked back into the lion's den. She didn't know that Nicholas Bennet had paused mid-conversation upon entering, his attention caught by the glimpse of a woman with profoundly exhausted eyes and an undeniable spine of steel. She didn't know that he had already registered the cruel way his business associate's wife had spoken to her, or that he was the kind of man who noticed absolutely everything. And she certainly didn't know that 3 weeks later, Penelope Wright's casual cruelty would become the devastating catalyst for a confrontation that would shake the foundations of both their worlds. The dinner service was an agonizing masterclass in professional endurance. Scarlett moved between courses with practiced, invisible efficiency, her face a serene mask of professional courtesy, even as Penelope's comments continued relentlessly, like corrosive acid dripped into fine wine. "I'm surprised they haven't upgraded to a more modern service staff. People who actually fit the ambience." "Penelope, that's enough," a man said uncomfortably, though without real authority. "Oh, relax, Richard. She can't even hear us. Can you, dear?" Penelope's smile was utterly vicious. Scarlett could, in fact, hear every single word, but she had long ago perfected the art of becoming invisible, of letting the torrent of insults slide off her like water off treated glass. She served the next course, collected the empty plates, and remained meticulously silent. What she didn't see was Nicholas Bennet's hand, tightening imperceptibly on his wine glass with each passing comment, his jaw clenching like granite. His intense eyes tracked every flicker of movement, every near-flinch Scarlett almost managed to hide. He had built his sprawling empire by reading people, by seeing the hidden cracks that others missed. And what he saw in the exhausted server, the careful, wounded dignity, the absolute refusal to meet the eye of her tormentor, stirred something fiercely protective and immediately dangerous in his chest. "Bennet, you're quiet tonight," someone noted lightly. Nicholas offered a faint smile, but it failed to reach the dark intensity of his eyes. "Just observing." When Scarlett returned to the table to clear the last plates before dessert, she finally allowed herself one small, fatal moment of weakness. Her feet ached so badly that standing upright felt like balancing on broken glass. She swayed slightly, catching herself on the back of a plush dining chair. "Careful." Penelope's voice sliced through the air again. "We can't have the help collapsing on the carpet. It's imported Persian, Laughter followed. Scarlett's face burned a desperate, fiery red of pure humiliation. "That's it." Nicholas stood abruptly. His heavy chair scraped back against the polished floor with a sound loud enough to instantly silence the entire room. "Penelope, a word. Now." The temperature in the executive dining room seemed to plummet 10 degrees. Penelope's smug smile faltered, replaced by sudden confusion. "Nicholas, I was just... Now." He strode purposefully from the room. After a moment of terrified hesitation, Penelope followed. Through the closed, solid door, voices immediately rose. His, terrifyingly quiet and controlled. Hers, increasingly shrill and defensive. Scarlett stood frozen, still holding a precarious stack of dirty plates, unsure whether to stay or abandon her post. The other guests suddenly found the screens of their phones absolutely fascinating. When Nicholas returned 5 minutes later, Penelope was not with him. His expression was carved from pure, unyielding ice. "Someone find the manager immediately." The supervisor appeared within seconds, her face bleached white with terror. "Mr. Bennet is everything. That server." He pointed directly at Scarlett, and her heart seized again. She has been working this entire event alone when protocol requires at least 3 staff for a party of this size. Why? We had 2 call-outs tonight, sir. And I don't want excuses. I want it fixed. Get her assistance immediately, and make sure she gets a break. A real one. With food. His eyes swept the stunned room, instantly silencing any potential complaints. And if anyone has a problem with the quality of service tonight, they can take it up with me directly. Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. Nicholas's gaze found Scarlett's across the distance, and for a terrifying moment, she saw something entirely unexpected in his dark depths. Concern, sharp anger on her behalf, and something else she couldn't possibly name. "My apologies," he said, directing the formal words straight to her. And somehow, they felt intensely personal. "For the disrespect you've endured tonight. It won't happen again." He then turned back to his guests. "Penelope has decided to leave early. The rest of you are welcome to stay, but I recommend we all remember that every person in this building deserves respect, regardless of their position." His voice was low, authoritative. "The measure of character isn't what you have. It's how you treat those who have less." Scarlett's eyes stung with sudden, hot tears. In 27 years, no one with power had ever defended her. No one had ever looked at her and seen someone worth protecting. The rest of the evening passed in a disorienting blur. True to his word, 2 more servers immediately appeared to help. Someone brought her a plate of warm food and insisted she take 15 minutes in the break room. When she returned, the party was winding down, but the atmosphere had fundamentally shifted from cruelty to muted respect. As the final guests departed, Scarlett was cleaning the last of the crystal when Nicholas appeared silently beside her. Up close, he was even more overwhelming, both devastatingly attractive and utterly terrifying. She knew exactly who he was now. The staff had been whispering his name all night. Nicholas Bennett. Business mogul, rumored connections to organized crime. A man who controlled half the city's economy. "You didn't have to do that," she heard herself whisper, then immediately regretted the boldness. But he smiled. A real, genuine smile that softened the dangerous, sharp edges of his face. "Yes, I did." He paused. "What's your name?" "Scarlett. Scarlett Hayes." "Scarlett." He tested the sound of it, rolling it lightly on his tongue. "You have a daughter?" Her head snapped up, instant fear flooding her system. "How did you?" He gestured subtly toward her apron pocket, where her inexpensive phone was visible. The screen, visible even in the dim light, displayed Lily's photo as her wallpaper. "I notice things. She's 4. And she's everything." The words came out defensive, instinctive. "Good." His expression gentled further. "That's exactly how it should be. How is her cough?" Scarlett froze completely. He couldn't possibly have heard that detail from across the room, amid the earlier chaos, but somehow he had. "She needs to see a doctor," she admitted softly. "But she stopped, uncertain why she was confessing such private, desperate details to this powerful stranger. Nicholas pulled out a thick, expensive business card, but instead of handing it over immediately, he wrote something quickly on the back. "This is my personal physician. Take your daughter to see him tomorrow. Tell him I sent you. Everything will be taken care of." "I can't accept that," she managed. "You can and you will." His tone left absolutely no room for argument, yet his dark eyes held only undeniable kindness. "Your daughter deserves proper medical care, and you deserve to not carry that entire weight alone." He placed the card on the polished marble counter between them, and Scarlett noticed his hands, strong, capable, marked with fine scars that suggested a harder past than his impeccable suit would ever reveal. "Why are you helping me?" The question escaped before she could stop the raw curiosity. Nicholas was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those impossibly dark eyes. "Because someone should. Because you work 3 jobs and still meticulously place your daughter's needs before your own survival. Because tonight you held your head high even when someone worked hard to tear you down." He leaned slightly closer, and Scarlett's breath caught again. "And because when I look at you, Scarlett, I see a quiet strength that most people spend their entire lives searching for. Then he was gone, leaving Scarlett alone with a heavy business card that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds and a strange, unfamiliar feeling in her chest she didn't dare to name. She didn't know that Nicholas sat in his armored car for 10 full minutes after leaving the Bellecourt, his hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to understand why a woman he'd just met had stirred a visceral, protective feeling in him he'd thought long dead. She didn't know that he had already made 2 strategic phone calls to ensure that Penelope Wright would find every high society door in the city, and her husband's business accounts, closed to her permanently. And she certainly didn't know that the next morning, when she nervously took Lily to see Dr. Forrest Morrison, she would find not just a highly regarded physician waiting, but a man who had already paid for every conceivable test, every medication, every treatment, and every follow-up visit her daughter might ever need. But she would find out soon enough. Dr. Morrison's office was nothing like the overcrowded, sterile clinic where Scarlett usually took Lily. Here there were educational toys in the waiting room, walls painted in warm, calming colors, and a receptionist who smiled like she genuinely meant it. Scarlett Hayes. The receptionist checked her discreet list. Yes, Mr. Bennett called ahead. Please come right through. Lily's small hand tightened anxiously in hers. Mommy, the doctor won't give me shots, will he? Maybe just one tiny one. Baby? But he's gonna help make that cough go away forever. Dr. Morrison was a kind-faced man in his 50s who spoke directly to Lily, not condescendingly over her head, explaining every procedure before he did it. The examination was thorough, far more detailed than any doctor had ever performed on her daughter. After the examination, he pulled Scarlett aside while Lily played absorbedly with the office's toy medical kit. She has bronchitis, which we can treat effectively. I'm prescribing a course of strong antibiotics and an inhaler, he explained gently. But Mrs. Hayes. Miss, Scarlett corrected automatically. Miss Hayes, your daughter is also significantly underweight and showing signs of chronic stress. I want to see her back here in 2 weeks, and I'd like to start her on some nutritional supplements immediately. His expression was gentle but absolutely firm. And I need to ask you, are you getting enough to eat? Scarlett's face heated with shame. I'm fine. Lily always eats first. That's exactly what I thought. He handed her several prescription sheets and a heavy folder thick with information. Nicholas has ensured that all of this is covered. That includes nutritionist consultations and whatever else your family needs to stabilize. He held up a hand before she could protest. And before you argue, his eyes twinkled slightly. He made it very clear that you would try to refuse and that I was to tell you that your daughter's health is non-negotiable. Tears burned the backs of Scarlett's eyes. I don't understand why he's doing this. I've known Nicholas Bennett for 15 years, Dr. Morrison said, his expression turning serious. He's a complicated man who built a complicated and often ruthless empire. But I've also seen him move heaven and earth for people he believes genuinely deserve better. Whatever his ultimate reasons, I can promise you they are absolutely genuine. Scarlett left with a bag full of medications, detailed appointment cards, and far more questions than answers. The enormous pharmacy bill she had been dreading was already settled. The follow-up visits were scheduled and covered in full. She tried to call the number on Nicholas's pristine business card 3 times that day, but each time her courage failed her. What would she even say? The answer came 2 days later when she arrived at the Bellecourt for her evening shift. Her supervisor pulled her aside immediately, her face tight with seriousness. Mr. Bennett wants to see you in his office. Now, fear shot through her. Did I do something wrong? No, honey. Just go. Top floor, executive suite. The elevator ride felt like a dizzying flight. Scarlett had never been above the main restaurant levels. The executive floor was a world of dark, silent wood, priceless abstract art, and floor-to-ceiling windows with views that made her physically dizzy. A secretary, polished, professional, and surprisingly warm, met her and led her to a set of imposing double doors. He's expecting you. Nicholas's corner office was enormous, sleek, and utterly intimidating. He stood by the vast windows, a phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid, authoritative Italian. When he saw her, he concluded the call immediately. "Scarlett, thank you for coming." He gestured toward a chair. "Please sit." She perched nervously on the edge of a leather chair that was undoubtedly worth more than everything she owned. "Mr. Bennet, I came to thank you for Lily," she began, twisting her hands in her lap. "The doctor said—" "How is she?" he interrupted softly. "Better. The medication is already helping." She took a deep breath. "But I can't accept all of this, the bills, the appointments. It's too much. I'll pay you back. I just need time to—" "No." She blinked, startled by the finality of the single word. "No, you're not paying me back." Nicholas moved to sit across from her, close enough that she could distinctly see the silver threading through his dark hair, the tiny, almost invisible scar above his left eyebrow. "Consider it handled. I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's simple decency." His voice gentled marginally. "Scarlett, you work 3 jobs to support your daughter. You ride the bus 90 minutes each day because you can't afford a reliable car. You skip meals so she can eat first. That's not failure. That is heroism. And heroes deserve support, not more struggle." The tears came then, despite her best, desperate efforts. She tried instantly to hide them, mortified to be crying in front of this powerful man. But suddenly Nicholas was there, kneeling beside her chair, offering a crisp handkerchief that probably cost more than her week's salary. "I'm sorry," she gasped, her voice thick. "I don't usually. I'm not." "You're tired," he finished for her. "You're overwhelmed. And you're trying to be resilient every second of every day." His large, solid hand covered hers where it rested on the arm of the chair. "You don't have to be strong right now, Scarlett. Not here." She looked at him through the blur of her tears. This powerful, dangerous man was holding her hand like she was something precious, not something broken or invisible. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Nicholas was quiet for an exceptionally long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with unexpected emotion. "My mother cleaned houses. 3 jobs just like you. She worked until her hands were raw and bleeding just to keep food on our table. And when she finally got sick, profoundly sick, no one helped her. No one cared that she couldn't afford the simple medicine that might have saved her life." His jaw clenched, the memory obviously raw. "I was 16 when I lost her. Too young to truly help, too powerless to change anything about her circumstance." Scarlett's heart broke for the boy he had been, seeing echoes of Lily's fragility in his story. "So when I see someone fighting that same merciless battle, working themselves to the bone for a child they love above all else," he met her eyes. "I help, because no one helped her. And maybe, in some impossibly small way, it begins to balance the scales." "I'm so sorry," Scarlett whispered, reaching out instinctively. "Don't be sorry. Just let me help." His thumb brushed lightly across her knuckles, and Scarlett felt the touch reverberate all the way to her core. "And there's something else. I'd like to offer you a different position entirely. My personal assistant just gave notice. She's moving to Seattle with her husband. The job pays 3 times what you currently make, with full benefits starting immediately." Scarlett's breath hitched again. "I don't have experience with—" "You're organized, professional, and hardworking. Everything else can be taught," he asserted easily. He smiled slightly. "Plus, I've seen you manage a dinner service alone that should have demanded 3 people. If you can handle that level of sustained chaos, you can absolutely handle my schedule." "Why?" The question was barely a ghost of a sound, the single word hanging between them. Nicholas's expression shifted, the hard lines of the ruthless financier momentarily dissolving into something she couldn't quite decipher. It was intense, burning, yes, but beneath the surface, a fragile vulnerability shimmered. "Because I want to see you again. Because every time I've tried to focus on work over the past 3 days, my mind has betrayed me, focusing on you instead. Because when you walked into that prep area looking utterly exhausted and still somehow impossibly resilient, something primal in me recognized something essential in you." Scarlett's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. "Mr. Bennet, "Nicholas, please. Nicholas." She breathed his name, a soft release, and watched his eyes instantly darken, the vulnerability replaced by a hungry intensity. "I have a daughter, a complicated life. I can't afford complications." "Then we'll keep it simple. We'll keep it strictly professional." But the way he looked at her was a contradiction to the word simple. It was complex, demanding, and utterly consuming. "Say yes to the job. Let me help you build something stable for Lily. Everything else." He stood, deliberately putting a careful, necessary distance between them, leaning his hands on the desk edge. "We'll figure out as we go." Scarlett knew this was dangerously ill-advised. She knew that men like Nicholas Bennett, with their tailored suits and empires, did not offer lifeline jobs to women like her without profound, often devastating expectations. She knew the electricity crackling between them was terrifyingly real and held the power to destroy her entirely if she wasn't impossibly careful. But she also knew that Lily desperately needed specialized medicine, that the freezing cold in their crumbling apartment had become unbearable, and that she was so tired her bones ached with a deep, systemic fatigue. "Yes," she whispered, the decision less a choice and more a surrender to necessity. Nicholas's smile, when it came, was immediate and brilliant, a sunrise breaking over a dark landscape. "Good. You start Monday, 9 a.m. Wear whatever you're comfortable in for now. We'll handle the professional wardrobe later." He returned to his desk, pulling out a thick sheaf of paperwork and a customized employment contract. "And Scarlett, your first task as my executive assistant will be accompanying me to a charity gala next week. It's a major fundraiser, and I need someone who genuinely understands what it's like to struggle to help me evaluate which organizations actually make a real difference." "A gala?" Panic flared, sharp and instantaneous. "I don't have a suitable dress? Already handled. My stylist will reach out tomorrow." He glanced up, and his sharp, professional expression softened instantly at her obvious distress. "Breathe, Scarlett. It's just an event. You've survived much worse than a room full of rich people desperately trying to feel important." She laughed, a small, startled sound despite the anxiety clawing at her throat, surprised that he could make her feel lighter even in the middle of a fresh panic attack. As she left his office, the heavy contract clutched in her hand and her mind reeling with impossible possibilities, Scarlett didn't see Nicholas watching her go with an expression that would have chilled his most formidable enemies to the core. It was a look defined by quiet possession, absolute protection, and a predatory intent dangerously close to obsession. She didn't know that he had already run a comprehensive background check, not to find dirt, but to understand every potential threat existing in her orbit. She didn't know that he had already identified Lily's absent father, a man who had abandoned them years prior, and had quietly ensured that if that man ever attempted to return or cause trouble, he would find nothing but insurmountable legal and financial obstacles. And she definitely didn't know that Penelope Wright had just discovered every country club, every elite luncheon, every exclusive social circle she'd once effortlessly commanded had suddenly, mysteriously, and decisively closed their doors to her, effective immediately. But Scarlett would find out soon enough. Because in 2 weeks, at the glittering charity gala filled with New York's untouchable elite, Penelope would make one final, devastating mistake. And this time, Nicholas Bennett's reaction would be nuclear. The next 2 weeks passed like a controlled, exhilarating fever dream. Scarlett's new position as Nicholas's personal assistant was everything he had promised. Demanding but structured, intensely professional but underscored by a profound and unexpected warmth. She efficiently learned his complex schedule, his rigid preferences, and the specific way he liked his coffee, black, 2 sugars, despite his public insistence that he took it straight. She also learned that he was nothing like the cold, calculating corporate magnate she had expected. He remembered the names of janitors and CEOs with equal gravity. He quietly donated massive amounts anonymously to causes that truly mattered, refusing fanfare or recognition. And every evening without fail, he asked about Lily. How's she feeling today? Did the new inhaler help her through the night? Send me photos sometime. I'd really like to see that smile you're always describing. It was dangerous how seamlessly, how easily, he had started to integrate himself into their lives. More dangerous still was how much Scarlett had started to look forward to their morning briefing meetings, the brief, unintentional brush of his hand when he passed her documents, and the way he looked at her across a conference table like she was the single most fascinating, complex person in the entire room. Dr. Morrison's follow-up appointment confirmed what Scarlett already knew in her bones. Lily was thriving. Color was back in her cheeks. Her boundless energy had returned, and there were no more heart-stopping coughing fits at 3 a.m. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," Dr. Morrison said with a knowing, approving smile. What Scarlett was doing was working one fulfilling job instead of 3 soul-crushing ones. She was eating regular, nutritious meals. She was living in an apartment that was finally, gloriously heated, because Nicholas had quietly arranged for her building's antiquated heating system to be completely repaired at no cost to the struggling tenants. She was also falling slowly, terrifyingly, for a man she had absolutely no business wanting. The charity gala arrived like an anticipated storm on the horizon. Nicholas's personal stylist, a whirlwind of calm efficiency, transformed Scarlett's tiny apartment into a high-end couture boutique, bringing rack after rack of designer dresses that cost more than her old, dilapidated car. "Mr. Bennett specified, midnight blue," the stylist announced, pulling out a gown made of liquid silk and tulle that stole Scarlett's breath away. "He said it would match your eyes perfectly." And he was right. The dress fit her body not just well, but flawlessly, like a second skin, because it had been meticulously tailored just for her. Scarlett stared at her reflection, elegant, sophisticated, poised, and utterly unrecognizable as the exhausted server who had polished wine glasses just 3 short weeks ago. "You look like a princess." Lily clapped from her position on the couch, where she was happily surrounded by new books and educational toys, gifts from Nicholas that appeared regularly despite Scarlett's increasingly futile protests. "Just for one night, baby." Scarlett knelt carefully in the expensive dress. "Miss Janet is going to stay with you, and Mommy will be back before bedtime tomorrow." "Is Mr. Nicholas taking you to the ball?" "It's not exactly a ball, sweetie. It's work. He thinks you're pretty." Lily's 4-year-old wisdom was devastatingly simple. "He looks at you like Prince Charming looks at Cinderella in the movie." Before Scarlett could process the observation, the doorbell chimed. Nicholas stood in her cramped hallway, filling the space with his presence, and she instantly forgot how to execute the simple act of breathing. He wore a tuxedo custom-tailored to perfection, a garment that should have been illegal in its devastating effect. His dark hair was meticulously styled, his jaw freshly shaved. But it was his expression when he saw her that made her knees feel liquid stunned, openly hungry, and intensely reverent. Scarlett. Her name was a breathy sound, almost a prayer. "You are truly breathtaking. You clean up pretty nice yourself, Mr. Bennett." She forced a light attempt at humor, desperate to cover the sudden, overwhelming swell of her nerves. "Mr. Nicholas." Lily bounded over, instantly recognizing him. "You're really taking Mommy to the ball." He knelt instantly, bringing himself down to Lily's eye level with the easy, unforced grace of someone completely comfortable with children. "I am, and I promise to take very good care of her." "Will there be dancing?" "Probably. You have to dance with Mommy, then. That's what princes do." Nicholas's eyes met Scarlett's over Lily's head, and a silent, profound conversation passed between them. An acknowledgement of the impossibility of the situation, the mutual danger, and the undeniable electric want. "Then I'll make sure to ask her. If she says yes." The gala was held at the magnificent Plaza Hotel, and stepping inside felt like walking into another dimension. Crystal chandeliers rained light over the ballroom, champagne fountains flowed endlessly, and designer gowns cost more than small houses. Nicholas kept a possessive, grounding hand on the small of Scarlett's back, guiding her effortlessly through the dense crowds. He introduced her not as his assistant, but simply as Scarlett Hayes, the smartest person in my company. She met CEOs, powerful philanthropists, and influential politicians. Nicholas stayed close, reading her discomfort instantly, and smoothly extracting them from any conversation that made her feel ill at ease or exposed. "You didn't tell me you were this protective," she murmured to him during a rare quiet moment near a marble column. You didn't tell me you could make that dress look like it was specifically designed to destroy my self-control. He countered, his voice rough with carefully banked emotion. Heat flooded her cheeks. Nicholas, there you are, darling. A familiar, chilling voice cut through the background music like a polished knife. Penelope Wright materialized before them, clad in a crimson dress and wearing a brittle, malicious smile. 2 weeks of brutal social exile had only sharpened her cruelty and desperation. I've been looking everywhere for you, Nicholas. We need to discuss the Metropolitan Board meeting. Her eyes landed on Scarlett, scanning her dismissively, and her expression curdled into pure acid. Oh, you brought the help. How terribly progressive of you. Nicholas's entire body went rigid, hardening instantly. Penelope, you need to leave. This is a public event, darling. I have just as much right to be here as your little charity case. Her name, Nicholas said, his voice dropping to a lethal, subsonic quiet that caused nearby conversations to falter and die, is Scarlett Hayes. And you will address her with the respect she has earned, or you won't address her at all. Penelope laughed. A high, harsh, desperate sound. Respect for her? Nicholas, really? Just because you've suddenly developed some ludicrous savior complex about the working class doesn't mean the rest of us have to pretend. Pretend what? He took a menacing step forward, and Penelope actually flinched, backing up involuntarily. Pretend that she's not worth 10 of you? Pretend that she doesn't work harder in one day than you have in your entire cushioned life? Pretend that I don't see exactly what you are. Small, fundamentally cruel, and desperate to make others feel inferior because you are terrified of your own inadequacy. The entire ballroom had fallen into a horrified, electric silence. Phones appeared, discreetly, but present and recording. This exchange would be shared instantly everywhere. You can't speak to me like that. I just did. Nicholas's voice carried through the shocked space like a final judgment. And since you've made it abundantly clear you cannot behave with basic human decency, let me make something else perfectly clear. Scarlett Hayes has more grace, more inherent strength, and more genuine class in her little finger than you have in your entire body. She is brilliant, hardworking, and kind. Everything you desperately pretend to be but will never actually achieve. Penelope's face turned scarlet with fury and humiliation. This is absurd. All this over some maid who saved my life. The words dropped like a tactical bomb, echoing in the sudden silence. Scarlett's head snapped toward Nicholas, genuine shock written across her face. They had never discussed anything remotely like that. What was he doing? But Nicholas's dark eyes held hers, unwavering, and she saw the truth. He wasn't lying. Perhaps not literally, perhaps not physically, but emotionally, fundamentally, he meant every single word. She reminded me, he continued, his voice softening just for her, despite the hundreds of witnesses. What matters? What's real? And if you can't see that, if you can't recognize that the measure of a person has nothing to do with their bank account and everything to do with their character, then you are not welcome in any space I control. He turned completely to Scarlett, his hand finding hers, steady and warm. Dance with me. Nicholas, everyone's watching. Let them watch. He pulled her onto the center of the dance floor just as a soaring Viennese waltz began, his arms sliding around her waist, holding her close, proprietary. I'm sorry. I know I said we'd keep things strictly professional, but I can't. I won't let anyone speak to you like that again. Scarlett's head spun. They were waltzing in front of hundreds of people, under the scrutiny of cameras. Tomorrow, this would be the headline everywhere. You just socially destroyed her career. I know. You called me brilliant in front of the entire city elite. You are brilliant. She looked up at him, seeing the absolute, terrifying certainty reflected in his dark, intense eyes. What are we doing? His hand tightened on her waist, pulling her flush against him. I don't know, but I know I can't stay away from you. I know that when I wake up, you are my first thought. I know that Lily's laugh has become my favorite sound in the world, even though I've only heard it through your phone speaker. I know that I'm terrified. Scarlett interrupted, her voice breaking slightly. I'm terrified of how much I want this. Want you, because people like you don't end up with people like me. Not really. Not in ways that last. Then let me prove you wrong. He pulled her closer still, their bodies moving in perfect sync with the swirling music. Let me show you that what I feel isn't about your background or my position. It's about you, your strength, your heart, the way you make me believe in something far better than the darkness I've built my empire in. I have a daughter, she whispered, the familiar weight of baggage, of complications. You have a beautiful child who deserves a father figure who will protect her the way I would die to protect you. His jaw clenched, a muscle visibly ticking. Scarlett, I am not a good man. I've done things that would genuinely horrify you, but with you I want to be better. For you and for Lily, I'd burn down everything I've built and start over from scratch. The song ended, leaving the ballroom in a state of stunned, buzzing silence broken by whispers and stares. Somewhere in the distance, Penelope Wright was leaving in tears and white-hot fury, and Scarlett Hayes made a choice that would change absolutely everything. She kissed him, right there, in front of everyone. She rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. It was soft, brief, terrifying, and utterly perfect, a claim made in public. When she pulled back, Nicholas's eyes were dark with promise and absolute, possessive triumph. You just changed everything, he murmured against her lips. I know, Scarlett breathed. I'm still terrified. Good, so am I. He smiled, and the expression was both beautiful and profoundly dangerous. Come on, let's get out of here. I want to meet Lily properly, and I want to start showing you what forever looks like. They left the gala hand in hand, a swarm of photographers and society phones tracking their exit. Society pages were already writing the blazing headlines. Penelope Wright's reign had officially ended, and neither of them noticed the man in the shadows, watching their departure with cold, calculating eyes. A man who knew exactly who Nicholas Bennett was, who Scarlett Hayes had just become to him, and precisely how to use that powerful, newly exposed weakness to destroy them both. But that immediate threat was still forming, still distant. For now, there was only Nicholas helping Scarlett into his waiting car, his hand lingering on hers. There was only the long, comfortable drive back to her apartment, filled with companionable silence and charged, stolen glances. There was only Lily's delighted squeal when they walked in together, and Nicholas's gentle, rumbling laughter as the 4-year-old insisted he read her a bedtime story right away. And as Scarlett watched this powerful, dangerous man sitting casually on her daughter's bed, reading about princess warriors with a perfect dramatic flair while Lily giggled, she felt something profound click into place. Fear, yes, but also a burgeoning certain hope, possibility, and undeniably, irrevocably, love. The calculated threat arrived 3 days later in the form of a plain manila envelope delivered directly to Nicholas's corporate office. Scarlett was efficiently reviewing his calendar when his entire body went instantly rigid, his face draining of color as he scanned the contents. Nicholas, she stood immediately, rushing to his side. What's wrong? He looked up, and she saw something she had never witnessed before in his hardened gaze. Fear. Raw, visceral, protective fear. Photos of you and Lily outside her preschool. At the grocery store. His voice was deadly calm in that way that meant he was barely restraining a seismic, destructive rage. And a message. Your weakness has been identified. Scarlett's blood turned to agonizing ice in her veins. Who? Konstantin Volov. A rival who's been attempting to seize my territory and connections for years. Nicholas stood, already pulling out his phone. His movements economical and terrifyingly focused. He's threatening you to get to me. The world tilted violently. This was real. The theoretical danger she had acknowledged was now physically tracking and photographing her daughter. We need to call the police. The police can't touch him. But I can. Nicholas moved to her, his large, solid hands framing her face, forcing her to focus. Listen to me. I am going to protect you both. I have men already moving into position around your building, around Lily's school. But Scarlett, his jaw clenched, you and Lily need to come stay at my estate. It's the only place I can guarantee your absolute safety. We can't just move into your house. Yes, you can. You will. His eyes blazed with intense, unwavering determination. Because if something happens to either of you because of me, I won't survive it. Do you understand? I need you safe. I need her safe. Please, Scarlett. Trust me. She saw it then, the truth she had been dancing around. Nicholas Bennett wasn't falling for her. He had already fallen, completely and irrevocably, just like she had for him. Okay. She whispered, the single word sealing their shared fate. Okay. The emergency move happened within hours. Nicholas's security team, professional, heavily armed, efficient, and surprisingly kind to Lily, transported them to an immense estate that made the word mansion seem insufficient. It was 20 meticulously secured acres, bristling with state-of-the-art security, and boasting enough rooms that Scarlett managed to get lost twice within the first hour. This is the princess suite, Nicholas told Lily, opening the double doors to a bedroom that looked like it had been lifted directly from a lavish fairy tale. I had it prepared just for you, but if you don't like pink, we can change everything immediately. It's perfect. Lily's eyes were enormous, shining with awe. Mommy, look, there's a slide from the bed. Scarlett's throat tightened painfully, watching Nicholas kneel beside her daughter, patiently showing her each feature of the room with quiet care and tenderness. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't manipulation. This was a powerful man genuinely trying to make a scared little girl feel safe again. Your room is next door, he said quietly to Scarlett later, his voice low and serious. But I'm down the hall if you need anything at all. And Scarlett. He caught her hand, his thumb stroking her pulse point. I know this is overwhelming. I know it's fast, but I meant what I said at the gala. I'm all in. Whatever happens, wherever this goes, I'm yours. Both of you. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep in her towering princess bed, Scarlett found Nicholas in his massive home office. Security feeds blinked on multiple screens, and a phone was pressed to his ear, where he was speaking rapid, cold Italian. He ended the call immediately when he saw her standing in the doorway. Can't sleep, can you? She moved closer, seeing the deep exhaustion etched around his eyes. When was the last time you slept? I'll sleep when you're safe. His hand found hers, pulling her gently down to sit beside him on the sofa. I've got men tracking Volov's movements. He can't touch you here. That's not what I'm worried about. Scarlett turned his face to hers, forcing him to look away from the screens. Nicholas, you can't protect us every second. You can't stop living your life. Watch me. His intensity stole her breath entirely. Scarlett, do you know what you've become to me? You're not just someone I care about. You're the reason I get up in the morning. You and Lily, you're what I think about when I make decisions, when I negotiate billion-dollar deals, when I decide what kind of man I want to be. You've changed everything. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice thick. Not of Volov. Of this. Of how much I feel for you. Because if something happens, nothing will happen. He kissed her palm, the touch soft and reverent. I promise you, Scarlett Hayes, I will spend every day of my life making sure you and your daughter are safe, happy, and loved beyond measure. Love? The word caught, fragile, in her throat. Love, he repeated it firmly, surely. I'm in love with you. Have been since I saw you polishing crystal with exhausted hands and a spine of steel. And I'm completely gone for that little girl down the hall who asked me if dragons are real, and when I said no, told me I clearly wasn't looking hard enough. Scarlett laughed through the sudden, surprising tears. That sounds exactly like her. She's perfect. You're perfect. Nicholas pulled her into his lap, holding her tightly like she was the most precious, irreplaceable thing in the universe. And I know I'm not the safe choice. I know my world is inherently dangerous, but I swear to you, I will do everything in my power to give you both the life you deserve. I love you too, Scarlett whispered against his neck. I'm terrified, but I love you. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other's arms, until a series of urgent security alerts started blinking red on the multiple screens. Nicholas tensed immediately, transforming back into the predator. What? Breach attempt. West perimeter. He was already moving, phone in hand. Stay here. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone but me. Nicholas. But he was gone, moving with speed and purpose, leaving Scarlet alone with a pounding heart and paralyzing fear. She checked on Lily, who was still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger circling outside, then returned to pace Nicholas's cavernous office. 20 minutes felt like a lifetime. When the door finally opened again, Nicholas stood there. His tuxedo suit was torn and dirted. His knuckles were bleeding, but he was alive. Whole. Scarlet crashed into him, checking frantically for injuries, her hands shaking violently. "Are you hurt? What happened?" "Volov's men. We stopped them." His strong arms came around her, holding tight, crushing her to his chest. "It's over, Scarlet. We have Volov in custody. He's facing charges that will keep him locked up for life. The FBI has been building a case against him for months. I just gave them the final piece of leverage they needed. Is really over? Is really over?" He tipped her face up, and she saw exhaustion and relief in his eyes, but also a hopeful future. "You're safe. Lily's safe." And now, his smile was tentative, incredibly hopeful. "Now we get to figure out what normal looks like. If you still want that with me." Scarlet kissed him, fierce, claiming, "Sure." When she pulled back, she was smiling through the last of her tears. "I want everything with you. Always." The next morning, Lily woke to find Nicholas making massive chocolate chip pancakes in the enormous kitchen. Her mother laughing beside him, and declared that this was exactly like a fairy tale, but better, because there are chocolate chips. And Scarlet, watching Nicholas perfectly flip pancakes while discussing the intricate habitats of dragons with complete seriousness with her 4-year-old, felt the oppressive, chronic weight she had been carrying for years finally, irreversibly lift. This was real. This was theirs, and it was just the beginning. 3 years later, Scarlet stood in the sun-drenched garden of their home. No longer merely Nicholas's estate, but theirs, transformed by her warm touches into something welcoming and deeply personal. Watching Lily chase butterflies with her rambunctious little brother. "She's gotten faster," Nicholas murmured, sliding his arms around her from behind, pulling her close. Against her back, his chin nestled comfortably on the curve of her shoulder. "He is absolutely set on capturing that poor creature." Scarlet melted further into his solid warmth. She could feel the familiar rumble of his chest when he spoke. Just like his father, she mused, stubborn and utterly convinced he can accomplish anything he sets his mind to. I wonder where either of them acquired such unshakable confidence. Nicholas's large, reassuring hand drifted down to cover her stomach, a gentle anchor on the barely perceptible curve where a new life was beginning to quietly make its presence known. "How are you truly feeling, my love?" he murmured, his voice laced with concern. "Exhausted, yes. Joyously, ridiculously happy. And still, after all this time, completely flabbergasted that this beautiful, secure reality is mine." She turned slowly in his embrace, her eyes tracing the beloved lines of his face. She gazed up at the man who had publicly defended her dignity against the venom of Manhattan's elite, the formidable force who quietly dismantled corporate and personal threats to ensure her peace, yet who read bedtime stories with the dramatic panache of a stage actor and attended every single school recital as if it were the most anticipated opening night on Broadway. Still surprised, he offered her that rare, heart-stopping smile, an expression of vulnerable tenderness reserved entirely for her. "Did I not promise you forever, Scarlet?" "You did," she whispered, brushing a stray lock of hair from his temple. I never believed forever could feel this safe, this perfect." "Perfect?" Nicholas let out a rich, throaty laugh that resonated deep within her chest. "My dearest Scarlet, you are looking at a man who managed to burn artisanal sourdough toast this morning, who just got neon finger paint splashed onto a custom-tailored suit that cost more than most family sedans, and who still wakes up in a cold sweat sometimes, terrified he might lose you. And I," she countered, her voice softening with profound adoration, "am looking at the man who saved my daughter's life, who gave me the opportunity to pursue a meaningful career, who literally built me an entire hidden library wing because I once wistfully mentioned I wished I had more quiet time to read." She reached up, cupping his jaw. "The man who sees me, truly sees the quiet, striving woman inside every single day, and who makes me believe that I am valuable, exactly as I am. You were always enough." he stated, his voice dropping to a low conviction. He pressed a soft, deeply reverent kiss to her forehead. You just needed someone to remind you, and to show you what the rest of the world already saw. A joyous, high-pitched squeal interrupted their quiet moment as Lily dashed toward them, her pigtails flying, arms wide open. Daddy, come help me teach Marcus about the butterflies. He keeps trying to grab them. That's because he's being a little too insistent, isn't he? Nicholas observed, effortlessly scooping his daughter into the air. But let's go show him the art of gentle observation instead. Scarlett watched him jog across the manicured lawn toward their son. Lily perched securely on his broad shoulders, her delighted giggles ringing like tiny bells in the afternoon light. Scarlett's heart swelled in her chest, a sudden, powerful fullness that felt like it might genuinely burst from sheer gratitude. The young woman who had once stood polishing crystal with trembling, fear-filled hands, a low-paid server enduring humiliation, now stood rooted in the lush beauty of their private Italianate gardens, not only the wife of Nicholas Bennett, but a respected professional. She now held a doctorate in nonprofit management, a goal she had achieved entirely because a man had believed in her potential before she could even recognize it herself. The server who had endured relentless cruelty with quiet dignity now ran the formidable Bennett Foundation, strategically directing millions of dollars toward causes dedicated to empowering women who had once been exactly where she was. Single mothers fighting against impossible, systemic odds. And as for Penelope Wright, the last Scarlett had heard, the once powerful socialite was living a profoundly quiet life in a small town in Connecticut, far removed from the dazzling social circles she had tyrannized, her former influence and chilling cruelty having faded into a mercifully distant, irrelevant memory. Justice, Scarlett had learned through profound experience, was not always swift or flashy, but it was absolutely inevitable when ethical men and women chose to stand up and act. "Mommy!" Lily called out, waving excitedly. "Come see. Daddy says this butterfly is a monarch, and they fly all the way to Mexico." Scarlett walked across the warm grass, joining her family. Nicholas's hand found hers instantly, a familiar, comforting connection. Their two beloved children safely nestled between them, the future stretching out before them, bright, wide open, and absolutely certain. From the insulted maid fighting for survival to the deeply cherished wife of the city's most formidable man, from invisible and overlooked to fully seen and adored. This journey hadn't been some flimsy, saccharine fairy tale. It had been something far, far better. Real, messy, complicated, hard-won, and in every fundamental way, absolutely perfect. As the sun began its slow descent over their sprawling garden, painting the entire scene in hues of vibrant gold and rose, Scarlett Hayes Bennett smiled, thinking back to that singular moment 3 years prior when Nicholas had staunchly defended her honor in front of everyone who mattered. She realized she hadn't just gained a champion that night. She had finally found her voice, and she had never once stopped using it. This story has reached its end. If this journey touched your heart in any way, please take a moment to leave your like and share it with someone else who also enjoys deep, emotional stories. New stories will be arriving soon. Until next time.